Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. The guest that I have on today, he and I have recently connected. I love what he's doing. It's important for men's health. It's important for dads out there. It's important for not only dads, but also their families. It's something that I'm a firm believer in, and he's going to get into all that stuff. But my good friend Clifford Stephan has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, Cliff.
Hey, Bryan, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to dive into what you're doing because I'm a big believer in, men's health and taking care of myself, not only for myself, but for my family. I want to be around a long time. I want to experience all the things that my boys are experiencing as they grow up and form their own families. But before we get into all that, let's talk a little bit more about you, kind of, how you grew up and what you're doing now. And then obviously this is a dad podcast, so I want to know about your family as well.
Yeah, grew up in Silicon Valley in uh, back in the 70s, and yeah, it was awesome place. Played water polo, soccer, and tennis in high school. Started, real extroverted. Had a great time with my buddies and teammates. Started drinking socially in high school. Went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Studied nutritional science. Got a degree with that, and got into corporate America. I had my own consulting business, designing comp plans for tech companies in the Bay Area for 20 years. And meanwhile, I got married. I have two kids, 10 and 14-year-old girls. And the last 5 years, I launched Booze Vacation, which is kind of a men's health movement disguised as a beer commercial, uh, kind of advocating guys to get smarter with their drinking as you kind of get in your 40s and beyond. It doesn't hit the same as when you're in your 20s and 30s. And it, yeah, really impacts kind of how you show up across the board, whether it's with your business, on sports, with your family, and how you sleep, all that stuff. So,
Yeah. Tell me about your family.
um, yeah, met my wife backpacking in Europe. And yeah, we had a long distance relationship. I was in California, she was in Kentucky. And yeah, great farm girl, super stoked. Yeah, it's a big important choice to choose right. And there's definitely some dumb luck there. But yeah, really blessed with a great partner. And yeah, we have 10 and 14-year-old girls, one in finishing up grade school and one finishing up junior high. So
Cool.
yeah, getting a little hectic. A lot of people have three and four kids, but yeah, two's keeping us plenty busy with little sports and some tutoring and trying to catch up on the COVID school closures and all that. But yeah, everybody's healthy and doing well.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Interesting. You have two girls. You know what's funny is you're talking about the stuff that where you're from and all that kind of stuff and how you grew up and a couple things you mentioned. Number one, you played water polo in high school. I played water polo in high school with myself. And then number two, we didn't talk about this off the air. I just noticed it when you said it. You went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. That's where I'm from. That's literally where I'm from.
Oh wow,
San
that's
Luis.
a beautiful
Uh,
spot.
I
Great
grew up
spot.
in Atascadero.
Yep. I had a
So that's where I
roommate. I had a
went.
roommate. I had a roommate from there. Yeah.
So I went to Atascadero High. I mean, my parents still live in Atascadero. Like, that is so funny. Small world. But yeah, that's my home dirt, man. That's crazy. Anyways, small world. Just a little sidebar. Well, you have two young girls. The things that you're talking about, super impactful. I have two older boys. My boys are 26 and 24. And one of the things that I did when my boys were around your girls' ages, I noticed that I'm an ex-military guy and all that, and I noticed that my alcohol use wasn't a problem for me to function. Like I was still a functioning person. Like I participated in all their sports. I wasn't, I didn't drink and drive. I didn't drink while I was doing stuff with my boys, like all that kind of stuff. I was more of a social drinker or kind of a casual drinker. Where I was at home, I'd be having, drinks. And I realized that like I said, when my boys were about your daughter's ages, that I was subconsciously teaching my boys about alcohol at a very young age with my drinking. So what I elected to do was I mean, you talk about booze vacation. Like I literally took a permanent vacation from alcohol. I haven't had a drink in over 16 years. So like that's just something that I did. And it completely changed who I was as far as me physically, mentally, um, being emotionally involved more with my family. Um, and you're talking about like your online platform is Booze Vacation. So can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, yeah, it's ultimately about, I feel kind of weird saying it, but I'm kind of advocating for men of success, the one percenters that not a lot of people are worried about. But I look around when I was in the Bay Area, when I was in Midwest, what I'm seeing is as men get successful, they get in their 40s, they have their family, they have their business bolted down. They have it all on paper. They have the house, they have the cars, they have the club memberships, and I'm starting to see it, and I saw it with myself. I was a degree in nutritional science, super sporty. I had resources to really kind of dial in my healthy habits, and I got diagnosed with sleep apnea. I had belly fat. I was getting some bad blood work, and what I kind of came to realize begrudgingly, and I wasn't looking for it, but just how much small amounts of alcohol over time, especially as you're aging, can really dysregulate these key systems of health and how it kind of helps guys show up. And so, and unfortunately, the more success you have, oftentimes we associate it with fun friends events and reward system. So you're drinking more and it's very predictive, right? Like we know all the outcomes at this point. And so, yeah, it's really kind of about advocating for my fellow man and really helping them. You're speaking to, kind of just how you show up. And yeah, that's the problem. We're not targeting alcoholics but yeah, that gray area drinking is, yeah, it's predictive. You have a big weekend with the boys and you kind of want to repeat it the next weekend because of the way it dysregulates the body and your sleep and your metabolic health. And so it winds up being pretty predictive, and it definitely shows up it definitely shows up in how you parent. Honestly, at the time, I wasn't worried about how I looked for my kids. Like I said, I was kind of probably a little more self-centered, but I slept poorly. I had a lot of brain fog. And yeah, it was absolutely impacting how I was showing up for my kids. Just like I said, I think it rewires your brain for a bunch of negative states. So you have higher baseline stress and more anxiety and a lowered mood. And that's just like 3 or 4 servings of alcohol per week on a regular basis will do that. It'll rewire your brain to some extent, and if you're having a few more, it'll do so more so. So it's really about kind of a health and performance kind of advocacy. And again, it's not about pointing fingers, it's not about pushing sobriety, but it's just helping guys get smarter with their drinking. And so since the rewiring of the brain can take kind of 3 to 6 months, we advocate these longer breaks, not cutting back or taking a month off, and then proactively really re-regulating these key systems of health so guys get the biggest bang for their buck. So they're looking good, feeling good, their body composition's where they want. And yeah, they're getting good at having fun and socializing without needing it. They pick up on things like you're saying, like, hey, this is cool. I like that I'm showing up for my sons and not drinking. Cause yeah, you are kind of, you know, very consciously and unconsciously telling them that, hey, this is this important special thing that that daddy does. And so yeah, there's implications all over the place, but ultimately I'm not judging any of that. It's really just about how can we maximize your health and performance, and if we can do that, then that's going to kind of carry through in everything that you do, and at least you'll have that tool to kind of like pull from and get guys to 100%. Most guys are men of success in their 40s and beyond, they're at 60%, and that's normal and that's okay. But they chase coffee and drinks and comfort food, and yeah, it just kind of accelerates age and disease pretty predictably. So we're kind of trying to shake them up and help them take their health seriously during this window of opportunity where they can before more chronic disease stuff starts showing up.
Right. I wanted to ask you, what are when it comes to your metabolic dysfunction, because you talked about that, what are some of the red flags most dads are missing when it comes to that metabolic dysfunction?
Yeah. So the biggest one would be belly fat. Belly fat. If you have belly
Hmm.
fat, then what that means is your liver's full of fat. You have visceral fat, which is very damaging. It's very inflammatory, and it's really really spikes your cancer and just autoimmune diseases, et cetera. But yeah, that usually goes hand with bad blood work. So higher cholesterol, higher triglycerides, higher blood sugar. And so that's kind of the root cause stuff. And that's why diet and lifestyle is 9 out of 10 diseases are preventable. And it really starts with metabolic dysfunction because it's kind of the underpowering of the cell. So that'll manifest in a bunch of different ways. But
Right.
simply just the belly fat is a really big indicator. And then, yeah, you're going to start seeing other ones like sleep apnea, high blood
Hmm.
pressure, bad blood work, doc wanting to put you on pills, kind of nagging aches and pains and injuries. That's kind of showing inflammation, stomach problems, all the standard typical stuff that a lot of guys is kind of blow off a bit.
Right. And that, I mean, that, like you said, that turns into a number of other health issues, whether it's, sleep issues, I mean, just how you feel overall, your performance throughout the day, uh, how you show up emotionally, no matter what it's, if it's for your family or for your business, all those things are impacted. For me, I mean, 2 years ago, I wasn't obviously not drinking, but I wasn't eating right. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't exercising as much as I should. I was way overweight, and I decided to just go on this just massive transformation of losing weight, getting myself back into shape. I was an avid runner, but I just wasn't taking care of myself in less than 2 years. I've lost literally close to 100 pounds, just from changing
Wow.
how I ate and from exercising. So those are the two areas that I really implemented into my life. And I didn't even necessarily, what's crazy is I didn't even necessarily change what I ate. I just changed how I ate. So instead of eating a big plate of food, 3 times a day, I ate smaller portions. And instead, like, I'll give you an example. Fast food's bad for us, right? But I would eat fast food, not regularly, but I would eat fast food. But instead of ordering a big combo meal like most people and get that, the large size and all that kind of stuff, I would order a kid's combo and do the smaller portions. That's literally all I changed is just how I ate, how much I ate. And then I exercise like crazy. So I mean, this year alone, I've done almost nine, next month will be 9 marathons this year alone. So
Wow.
I've managed to just from exercising and changing how I ate to completely transforming me physically, which translates into how I feel, how I sleep, how I show up, how I'm emotionally impacted or effective. So all those other areas are important. And so yeah, metabolic dysfunction is something that most dads don't understand or don't even think about how it impacts other areas of our lives. And so I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, and the other obvious one is metabolic dysfunction is essentially pre-disease symptoms. So it'll absolutely show up that, as you were saying, in brain fog and low energy and lack of presence and all that stuff. But it's going to lead to what Peter Attia refers to as the four horsemen. So cardiac events,
Hmm.
Alzheimer's, cancers, and diabetes. So that's ultimately what we're kind of trying to run away from. And we don't want to see guys at the top of their career and having everything they want and the shit hitting their fan in the late 40s early 50s with and now you're in the disease management phase. A lot of your money, a lot of your relationships, your quality of life really take a serious hit. So if you can, and again, it's not just about not drinking and everything magically fixes itself. These your metabolic and cardiovascular and your sleep, a lot of these things get stuck because you've kind of been suboptimal for so long. So yeah, you have to kind of really get those dialed in, like you were saying, and then you can get great results. But it's not just about not drinking, but yeah, it's really kind of a simple functional approach to getting things back on track.
Yeah. And something you have to understand is that this is not you can make a significant difference in how you feel overall by making these changes, but it's not an overnight fix. Like this is going to take time for you to get, into that, habit of really trying to take care of yourself and changing how you feel. Like I said, for me, it's been, this 2 year journey. And so it takes time. It's a mindset. It's a mindset shift. You have to make that shift. In my head, I'm like, okay, I'm focused, dialed in. My mindset is right in making this shift to make myself feel better, which ultimately impacts how my family feels or how I show up for my family. But when it comes to mindset shift, what's the biggest mindset shift most men need to make in order to finally break that cycle of, stress and weight gain and exhaustion?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's about getting smarter with your alcohol use. And
Mm.
the reality is a lot of us start drinking high school, college, or even later in corporate America. It's very predictive. You know, you're regularly having 5 to 7 drinks a week that could have 10, 12 servings of alcohol a week. So you're changing your neural circuitry. You're really massively impacting your sleep. You're creating a leaky gut. So you're just doing so many things. And a lot of these guys have, as you get older, you have more responsibility, you have more work and family responsibility. And yeah, you're not firing on all cylinders from, just kind of a health and performance space. So the thing I would like to say to all the dads out there is it doesn't seem like a big deal. Like you're not drinking that much. You don't drink as much as Bob, the neighbor across the street. And you have your stuff together and all that. But like the reality is you're likely at 60, 70% of capacity. And you don't know until you take those longer breaks. So a 3 month break minimum would be great. Some guys that are having 15 plus servings, yeah, it's going to take them up to 6, almost 7 months just to get their brain back online. So, and get
Hmm.
back at capacity. So it sounds, and I get it. Like I really had a lot of my identity and my social extroversion was in how me and my buddies roll and how we go to events. There's, it's hand in hand with alcohol, and that's kind of how we do it. But ultimately, as you get into your 40s and beyond, you really kind of need to advocate and get just kind of chalk it up as an experiment to see like how quickly you can really move the needle with how you look and feel and perform and show up. And without that, just regular alcohol consumption is really just going to dysregulate these key systems of health that are already getting dysregulated with age and existing wear and tear. So it's very predictive, not that much fun. And so ultimately, if you want your life to look a lot more like a beer commercial, you gotta start taking your health seriously and know where you're at. We have a 3 minute men's health assessment, but you can kind of just briefly kind of dial in what's going on with your body as far as belly fat, what your prescription use is, how's your sleep, just some really basic things you can kind of really start showing where you're at from a health perspective. And ultimately, I think that's the key to navigating this life is you want to look and feel good and perform well and not have bad diagnosis from the doctor that's very, very costly and very impactful to your quality of life and how you show up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how does your family feel about how you've made the change that you've made in your life? What have they said to you? I'm just curious from your own personal experience.
Yeah, it's funny, as an entrepreneur and doing a lot of social media and hitting up the neighbors, I think yeah, they kind of get a chuckle just always hearing me squawk about it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's made a big difference. Like I said, I stopped, and again, it's not like I can't have a drink if I want one, but I pretty much don't drink anymore. But so they were pretty young at the time, but yeah, my kids have like put on hats and started trying to do, videos and stuff. They're just kind of been indoctrinated into it. But I think it has made a difference with how I show up as a husband to my wife. I definitely had a little bit of ADHD. It's pretty common for guys. I think they oftentimes self-medicate. But yeah, I think I'm a little bit better at completing tasks. Definitely my body composition and my bedroom performance is much improved. So, they weren't like, some wives are really dialed in on it and really, persnickety about how much you drank. Like my wife really wasn't, but I was kind of just really advocating for myself. So it's not like she's like necessarily like proud or but yeah she's like, yeah, I'm in I'm 53, and she's like, yeah, you look good. You're all
Hmm.
this kind of health kind of, tirades you're on is working, and
Yeah.
so
I think that for most men, if they were to mention to their wives that they were thinking about, you just said your wife really didn't, care all that much or really say anything. She didn't really, it didn't really change how she felt as far as how you were drinking or how often you were drinking. But I would venture to say that most men, if they mentioned to their wives that they would quit, that they were going to stop drinking, that their wives would be happy about it. For me, like I said, I was functional. I did all the stuff with my boys. Like I was a dad that was involved. I thought I was a husband that was involved and taking care of my marriage. And when I mentioned to my wife over 16 years ago, when I mentioned to her that I was gonna take a break from drinking, like I was gonna stop drinking, because I didn't want to. Main reason, like I said, was I didn't want to teach my boys about alcohol at a very young age, and that's how I grew up. My parents were drinkers, and I learned about alcohol at a very young age, and I didn't want that influence or that impact on my boys. And I realized I started to have that impact on them, and where it clicked for me was that I was in my normal routine, and I share this story all the time, but I was at my normal routine, sitting in my recliner, watching TV on an evening, after work, and I asked my 10-year-old at the time to go get me a beer out of the fridge. And it was the shoulder drop from my son, like, oh, okay. And then he goes and does it. And then I realize when he's handing me a beer from the fridge that I'm like, I just told my 10-year-old to go get me a beer. I cannot believe I just did that. Like I'm teaching my boys about alcohol by having them get me alcohol. And that was it. I was like, that was that shift, that just like a light bulb that went off in my head. And I told my wife, I said, I think I'm gonna stop drinking. And you know what she said to me, Clifford? She said, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. So she knew that I was drinking a lot, but she hadn't mentioned it to me yet, but she was going to. So my point is that there's a lot of men out there that do drink or do have drinks at night. Uh, and if you mentioned to your wives, I bet that they would be pleased or happy about it. And so go ahead.
I agree, and they definitely should be, because yeah, it really impacts, your health and how you show up and how you handle adversity. So it's a big deal. But it's funny, it really depends. Like, if you're in a high rolling, social circle, I've had plenty of buddies that are kind of more on the deeper end of the pool of gray area drinking, and I've kind of convinced them to take a vacation, and their wives are kind of giving them crap because, again, if somebody else is doing a behavior, it kind of shines a light on their behavior. So a lot of women have gotten sucked into, that as well. And it's twice as hard on their body because their body doesn't process it as much. It really spikes breast cancer risk, et cetera. That's another conversation for another day. But absolutely, like every wife should be ecstatic if their husband is not sucking into that, because that's just a really predictive way to, I mean, erectile dysfunction, lower testosterone, that really
Hmm.
changes how a guy shows up, their drive, their ability to do hard things, their body composition, I mean, their confidence. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big
Yeah.
deal whether, whether they see it or not. It's basically upregulating or downregulating our man card, essentially, is at the
Right.
end of the day, especially with age. So and you look at erectile dysfunction statistics, 50-year-olds, like 50% of guys will have ED, 60-year-olds, 60% of them will have ED. So, and alcohol is kind of the perfect concoction for that. It's gonna mess up your sleep. It's gonna mess up your hormones. It's gonna make you more fat, which is, estrogenic, which downregulates testosterone. It's gonna tweak your cardiovascular system for blood
Hmm.
flow. So it's gonna increase your stress. So those are the top five, ways to screw up your sex life. And so, yeah, I mean,
It's
it's a pretty big part of how guys relate. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a big
No,
deal.
it's huge. One last question, and I'll let you go. When it comes to you talked about men's assessment. Can you explain a little bit more about that? If men wanted to kind of dial in or start to dial in what you're talking about, and they wanted to take your assessment, what does it involve? What's it entail? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just hop on the website, boozvacation.com. There'll be a pop-up, or you can go to boozvacation.com/quiz. But yeah, we really just wanted to have a quick and easy conversation. And again, guys don't like to talk about, their drinking habits and some of this stuff, but really just as a peer, non-judgy, but you can get a really good sense of where you're at when you look at kind of the 20 questions we look at. You throw in your email. You don't even have to put in your real email address if you're worried about it. You'll still get the results, but you'll get a really nice, compelling report that will kind of speak to our methodology, which is essentially, your sleep, diet, and fitness are kind of the cornerstones of your health. And that's really going to influence and impact your cardiovascular health, your sexual health. And if any of those are at suboptimal levels, which they oftentimes are, in hectic lifestyles, they're going to pull down the others. And, you throw on a little bit of few drinks on top of that, it's just really going to accelerate the age and disease and the pre-disease symptoms becoming more chronic disease states. So it's ultimately about getting guys, giving guys this gift and hopefully inspiring them. There's a free call after if they want to ask questions or, question anything. But yeah, I think it really starts with a baseline awareness. I think guys that drink, they're kind of playing dumb with their alcohol, having a little bit more than they plan on it. And that kind of forces them to kind of play dumb with their health and kind of ignore some of these warning signs and the CPAP machines and stuff like that. And we want to kind of basically shine a little bit more of a light on that and have a little bit more of a peer-to-peer conversation that's not, 10 minutes with, at the doctor's office type of thing, that's a little bit more meaningful and show how that can help guys connect the dots on how being healthy is really going to give you better outcomes and show up better and give you more options, even if it's a temporary 3 or 6 month break.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, Clifford. What's the best place my viewers want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you? Best places for them to do that, and then how they can get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, boozvacation.com and or /quiz, and they can take the quiz or check out our website. And yeah, anybody wants to send me a note, I'm Clifford at boozvacation.com. Happy to answer any questions or help in any way I can.
Cool. Well, awesome. Listen, Clifford, thank you very much for what you're doing. Appreciate it. I love the message that you're trying to share out there. I love the inspiration that you're trying to share. I love how you're trying to impact and change how men feel, which ultimately impacts us and changes the dynamics of their families and stuff. So, you and I are kind of on the same page with that. So I appreciate it, and definitely thank you for being on the show. And I look forward to staying in touch with you, my friend.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, guys, this has been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend Clifford Stephan for being on the show. Make sure you guys check out his website if you want to take the assessment. If you want to learn a little bit more about him, all the links are in my show notes below, so you can do that there. And I highly encourage you to take the assessment just to kind of get an idea of how you feel and how you can perform better. And if you wanted a call with Clifford, he'd be happy to do that as well. But again, all those links are in my show notes below, so please make sure you do that. And listen, if you're not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad up.